Welcome back to our channel. In the changing tide of mid-century America, the year 1965 stood at the crossroads of progress and policy, tradition and transformation. It was a time of civil rights marches, space race advancements, and new voices on the global stage. Yet, amid all this societal evolution, a quieter revolution took place, one that jingled in pockets and slid unnoticed across counters. It happened in the smallest and humblest of items, the American dime. The year 1965 marked the beginning of a new chapter in American coinage. Until then, dimes had been composed of 90% silver, a tradition going back more than a century. But with silver prices rising and public hoarding of coins becoming more frequent, the U.S. government made a pivotal decision. Silver was out. Clad coinage was in. And the very first of these modern dimes to emerge under this new policy bore the date 1965. These coins represented more than just a new alloy, they marked a departure from the precious metal era and the beginning of the contemporary monetary landscape we now know. This sudden switch didn't come without confusion. Many Americans were unsure how to respond. The Treasury reassured the public that these new coins were worth just as much as their silver predecessors in spending power, even if their intrinsic metal value had decreased. The design remained unchanged. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's profile still graced the obverse, while the reverse showcased the torch, olive branch, and oak branch that symbolized liberty, peace, and strength. But what changed beneath the surface would come to define the 1965 dime in collector circles for decades to come. The majority of 1965 dimes entered circulation swiftly, doing what they were intended to do: facilitate everyday transactions. Most were used without a second thought, tossed into cash registers and soda machines. Yet, as the decades passed, sharp-eyed collectors began to notice something curious. Not all 1965 dimes were created equal. Some retained sharper detail. Others bore the faint glint of silver, despite the government's official shift to clad composition. And in a few rare cases, specimens surfaced with exceptional conditions so pristine that they defied the wear and tear usually expected of circulating coins. As the world of numismatics began to study these anomalies, the 1965 dime slowly evolved from common coinage into a highly sought-after collector's item. The most elusive were those transitional-era pieces, dimes minted using silver planchets intended for previous years, or coins that somehow escaped into circulation with experimental features. Such transitional errors, when authenticated, can command staggering prices due to their rarity and historical significance, but even standard 1965 dimes have managed to captivate collectors when they appear in superb condition. Coins that never entered circulation, those stored in original mint sets or discovered in untouched rolls, began fetching eye-watering sums at auctions. The allure wasn't just their historical context, but their immaculate preservation. Coins graded MS-67, MS-68, and beyond, especially those with exceptional luster, flawless surfaces, and crisp strikes, became treasures. In the vast spectrum of coin values, a mint-condition 1965 dime might surprise even the most skeptical observer. Certain examples, when evaluated and certified by leading grading agencies, have sold for between $70,000 and $142,000. It's an astonishing value leap for a coin that originally cost 10 cents. These high-value sales are driven by condition rarity and the historical significance of the first clad year. Collectors understand that finding a perfect survivor from the inaugural clad year is akin to uncovering a time capsule, a perfect artifact from a moment of change. One captivating story emerged from a collector in Nevada, who stumbled across a roll of dimes in his late grandfather's coin safe. Unassuming at first, one particular coin gleamed a little brighter. It turned out to be a 1965 Roosevelt dime, untouched by time, still brilliant in its original mint state. After submitting it for professional grading and receiving an MS-68 designation, the coin was auctioned for a six-figure sum. What began as a casual discovery became a life-changing find, reinforcing the idea that some of the rarest coins aren't hiding in vaults, but in everyday drawers and forgotten jars. This isn't just a coin, it's a gateway into American history. The 1965 dime symbolizes the end of silver coinage and the beginning of modern fiscal strategies. It reflects a moment when the government made tough choices to preserve the economy, and when Americans adapted to a new definition of value. The coin itself, unchanged in look but transformed in essence, serves as a powerful metaphor for resilience and transition. Today, collectors still hunt for 1965 dimes with fervor. Whether it's the chance of finding a transitional error, a high-grade clad specimen, or simply the joy of owning a piece of numismatic transformation, these coins continue to generate excitement. Coin shows, online forums, and private collections all echo with talk of the elusive perfect 1965 dime, the one that glows with the brightness of an untouched past and carries within it the weight of an evolving nation. If you're holding onto an old dime, especially one marked 1965, it might be worth taking a second look. It could be a relic of financial ingenuity, a hidden treasure of American history, or even a ticket to an unexpected windfall. Because in the world of coins, value isn't always about what's on the surface. Sometimes, the real story, and the real worth, lies just beneath. In the heart of the American bicentennial celebration, 1976 was a year unlike any other. The streets across the United States buzzed with a renewed sense of pride, patriotism, and reflection. Fireworks colored the night skies, flags waved from porches and storefronts, and the very idea of freedom was once again front and center in the American consciousness. It was a momentous 200-year milestone, and nearly every aspect of daily life reflected this spirit, including the coins that passed from hand to hand. While many recall the iconic bicentennial quarters and half dollars that bore special commemorative designs, the humble Roosevelt dime quietly continued its journey into circulation, unchanged in design but steeped in the significance of its time. The 1976 dime did not feature any special bicentennial imagery. It retained the same classic design introduced in 1946, with the left-facing portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, his stern gaze symbolizing determination and resolve. The reverse remained a trio of images deeply rooted in American ideals: the torch for liberty, the olive branch for peace, and the oak branch for strength. Yet, what makes the 1976 Roosevelt dime a remarkable piece of history isn't necessarily what was changed for that year, it's what stayed the same, and how rare circumstances transformed this quiet coin into a coveted collectible decades later. Most 1976 dimes were minted as part of everyday currency and served their purpose without fanfare. They were dropped into vending machines, handed to cashiers, saved in coin jars, and often overlooked amid the more visibly patriotic designs of the bicentennial series. However, as with many coins in numismatic history, time and condition have a way of elevating the seemingly ordinary to the truly extraordinary. The United States Mint produced the 1976 dime in three primary locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The San Francisco Mint primarily struck proof coins intended for collectors, while the Philadelphia and Denver mints created the bulk of the coins meant for daily use. Of the millions produced, only a handful were spared the harsh wear of circulation. These few exceptional coins remained untouched, protected in rolls, sets, or personal safes. Over time, these well-preserved examples became increasingly rare, and their flawless condition made them prime candidates for serious collector attention. Within the world of high-grade coins, tiny differences make massive impacts. A coin graded MS-67 or MS-68 by a professional service is vastly more desirable than its circulated counterparts. Even more so when that coin comes from a milestone year like 1976, reflecting the country's 200th birthday. In recent years, certain 1976 dimes in mint state condition have attracted aggressive bidding at auction. The price tag on some of these pristine examples? A jaw-dropping $60,000 to $125,000, depending on grading precision, strike sharpness, and overall visual appeal. These aren't simply coins, they're historical artifacts frozen in time. One such coin, unearthed in a forgotten proof set by a family cleaning out their late grandfather's desk drawer, made headlines in the collector community. What seemed like an ordinary set of coins turned out to contain a Roosevelt dime with mirror-like surfaces, razor-sharp features, and a flawless planchet. Once verified and graded at a near-perfect state, the coin sold at auction for a six-figure sum, changing the family's perception of everyday objects forever. It's this blend of historical significance, visual perfection, and national pride that gives the 1976 dime its compelling story. Though it didn't bear the flashy commemorative motifs of other bicentennial coins, it quietly bore witness to the era's optimism and pride. The fact that it slipped under the radar only adds to its allure today, as collectors realize how few were preserved in top condition. What was once seen as ordinary has become a hidden gem in the annals of American coinage. As new generations discover coin collecting or revisit their childhood coin jars with fresh eyes, the possibility of stumbling across a 1976 dime in exceptional condition remains tantalizing. Not every dime from that year is worth a fortune, of course. The vast majority are worth their face value or slightly more to hobbyists. But for the rare few, the coins that somehow escaped decades of wear and survived in gleaming perfection, the rewards are immense. It's also worth noting that the historical context adds emotional value to this coin. Every 1976 dime represents more than just 10 cents. It's a symbol of the resilience of the nation, the quiet confidence of its people, and the continuity of American values. Even without a flashy redesign, it holds the essence of the year, steady, enduring, and full of quiet dignity. So if you happen to come across a 1976 Roosevelt dime tucked away in an old drawer or coin collection, take a moment to examine it closely. Look for signs of perfection, clean edges, unmarred surfaces, a sharp strike. If it seems special, it might be worth having it professionally graded. Because while 10 cents won't buy much today, a single coin from a distant patriotic year could carry the value of a luxury car, a college education, or even a new home. In the world of numismatics, surprises are part of the thrill. And the 1976 dime, often overshadowed by its flashier bicentennial cousins, proves that greatness sometimes lies not in what's immediately seen, but in what's patiently preserved. What you hold in your hand might not just be a coin. It could be a piece of America's past, and your future. In 1984, the United States was striding forward with a sense of renewed confidence. It was a year when technology began creeping further into daily life, the economy was recovering from turbulent times, and the country was preparing for another presidential election that would define the tone of the coming decade. Amidst the roaring headlines and cultural shifts, something small and seemingly insignificant quietly continued its place in the daily rhythm of American commerce, the Roosevelt dime. Most would have never suspected that a coin minted this year would one day be worth tens of thousands of dollars, but that's the strange and fascinating magic of numismatics. The Roosevelt dime, introduced in 1946, had by 1984 become a staple of American currency. With its compact size, durable copper-nickel composition, and iconic profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the coin was practically invisible in everyday life. People tossed them into their pockets, used them for parking meters, or passed them across gas station counters without a second thought. It was never about flash or flare. It was about function. And yet, in the world of coin collecting, it's precisely this quiet utility that sometimes masks unimaginable value. The 1984 Roosevelt dime was minted at several facilities, including the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Philadelphia coins came without a mint mark, while those from Denver carried the familiar D. The San Francisco Mint also produced proof coins with a sharp, mirror-like finish intended primarily for collectors. As millions upon millions of these dimes rolled off the presses, no one expected any of them to be particularly rare. After all, common coins are only rare when fate intervenes. Over the years, numismatists and collectors began to uncover a handful of 1984 dimes that were anything but ordinary. Some were struck with unusual errors, missing mint marks, double dies, or off-center designs. Others were simply preserved in immaculate condition, never entering circulation, and resting undisturbed for decades in rolls, sets, or private collections. These coins, when submitted to professional grading services, stunned experts with their condition, showcasing clean fields, sharp detail, and eye-catching luster. It was through these discoveries that the true value of certain 1984 dimes began to emerge. When you factor in the grading scale used by the coin world, where a coin rated MS67, MS68, or higher is seen as near perfect, it becomes clear how small imperfections can vastly impact value. Coins in those higher grade categories from 1984 are extremely scarce. Their scarcity, combined with a rising demand for quality modern-era coins, has pushed their value to astonishing levels. Today, a 1984 Roosevelt dime in pristine, certified mint state condition can command between $52,000 and $116,000 at auction or through private sale. Yes, a dime, the same kind found under car seats or in laundry room jars, can be worth more than a luxury vehicle. One such coin created quite a buzz in the collector community when it appeared unexpectedly in an estate sale in the Midwest. Initially tossed in with a batch of miscellaneous coins, it was spotted by a sharp-eyed buyer who noticed its flawless strike and untouched surfaces. Sent for professional evaluation, the coin received an MS-68 rating and was soon after sold at a specialty auction. The final hammer price left many speechless and forever cemented this otherwise unassuming 1984 dime as a treasure. It's not just about condition, though. Part of the value lies in the timing, the provenance, and the growing trend of modern coin collecting. As more people enter the hobby and begin exploring coins from the late 20th century, demand has increased for rare finds from the 1980s and 1990s. These aren't coins that have sat in dusty museums, they're pieces that circulated among ordinary Americans, making their survival in perfect shape all the more remarkable. The beauty of this story is that it reminds us how value often hides in plain sight. For years, the 1984 dime was just another coin, light, familiar, and forgettable. But for those who look closer, who take the time to inspect and preserve, it can become something truly extraordinary. It's a reminder that even in the age of credit cards and digital wallets, physical coins still hold stories, secrets, and sometimes serious value. Collectors now scour through bank rolls, coin jars, and old collections in search of their own version of the perfect 1984 dime. Some look for the elusive proof errors, others chase after uncirculated rolls sealed and forgotten in attics. Whatever the method, the motivation is the same: to find a tiny sliver of American history hiding in everyday change. In the grand timeline of American coinage, the Roosevelt dime doesn't always steal the spotlight. It doesn't carry the weighty imagery of an eagle or Lady Liberty, nor does it have the historic gravitas of a century-old silver dollar. But what it does have is consistency, simplicity, and enduring appeal. The 1984 edition, in particular, proves that even the most modest design can take on incredible value when preserved against all odds. So next time you're thumbing through your change or organizing an old coin jar, give every dime a second glance. Especially those from 1984. Because what seems ordinary could, in truth, be a rare and valuable survivor of a bygone era, a small, silent witness to American life that has become a modern-day treasure.